We have the incredible opportunity of looking under the financial hood of hundreds of companies around the country. And it's interesting because when people knock on our doors, since we are outsourced accountants, there's always something that they are struggling with financially. And that's why they're here, because their books are broken. And I want to point out, first of all, that as an entrepreneur, if you feel like something's wrong in your business financially, but you can't quite get your finger on it, that's what this episode's about. We're going to walk you through the 10 most common things we see wrong in a business's financial system when they ask us for help. This is not going to be a 4-hour episode. We're going to try and be pretty concise with this, but I do have my partners here with me today. I've got Dan Luthi and Ryan Steck, and we're going to have a little round robin and go through the 10 most common problems in the accounting platform. Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is the Cashflow Debates podcast you're listening to. Our job is to help financially frustrated entrepreneurs find profit in their business. That's our goal. That's what we're talking about. And I've got Dan. Say hi, Dan.
Hi. How's it going, everybody?
And we've got Ryan.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Ryan.
As always, they are awkward accountants, which is why I love them.
Hi, Eddy.
Yeah. Accountants aren't known for being comfortable on camera, but these guys actually do pretty good. They do pretty good. Yeah. Well, we got talking last week about some of the challenges we see in a business's financial platform, and we made a list of 10 things. Some of these will be more weighted towards Dan's world since you do operational stuff, right? Ryan will weigh in from a consultant, sort of business coach perspective when possible. But let's just go through these efficiently here. So the first one that I see a lot is just outdated software. I have a lot of people, because I'm in the sales and marketing department. So if somebody knocks on our door, I'm the one that talks to them first, and we go through and see these things. And I see a lot of the time outdated software where people have, I feel like in the 90s or just thereafter, they built their own kind of in-house platform, an ERP or something, and it's old and outdated, but they stuck with it. And that's one example. Or they're just using, software vendors that didn't keep up.
Yeah, I think especially right now, the conversation really is heavily around the QuickBooks Desktop death date.
Yeah,
that's coming along, and the context that goes along with that. Desktop's a great product, but it doesn't have as much integrations now with some of these changes in online platforms that really provide a lot more visibility to clients. And so that's definitely a part of that conversation we have with people. And we're not saying desktop's bad or enterprise is bad, but online just has better integration functions right now. And so that can be a part of that conversation of outdated because you're not really able to create efficiencies.
So that's actually a really good example because so online has this nice function, right, where like all of these softwares can bolt into it. That's the idea anyway. But people will often come to us because it's a sort of a confusing thing to figure out what software should I be using, how do I bolt these together, and like how much is this going to cost? I think there's a big fear that you become software addicted, where you just want the newest, shiniest, coolest thing. How do you feel about software addiction, Ryan?
Well, it's interesting because you go back 5 years ago and I'm sitting there pounding the table going, why do we always have to change our softwares? Why does this have to change? Why are we always looking at the newest, brightest, shiniest penny? Why are we always doing this? And the world's changing so fast and so much is coming out. I finally come around to understand that there is a middle ground there where you do have to keep up on change in software and things that are happening because there actually are some things that do change everything that is just way better than it used to be.
Well, and I'm glad you called that out because I think one of the 5 years ago, everybody was really preaching the best of breed mentality. And so that list got extremely long. There was a lot of applications. There was a lot of tools that accountants, other software companies, other professionals were pushing on people. And so much like Ryan, there's a lot of business owners who've said, I don't want to deal with this. And they've stepped back. Come 5 years earlier, we're now seeing a lot of those applications consolidate or have better integrations or more clean, workflows. And so it's now become a position where you really need to take the time to evaluate what's best for your business. I actually like that you listed all three of these first top ones together because they actually really tie heavily together in the operational flow that we start with our clients when we first do our onboarding process.
Yeah. Nice. All right. So that's the first one, outdated software. If it's just not working for you, things aren't bolting together, that's probably one of the reasons why you're frustrated with the finances of your business. All right. The second one is manual processes. So I think some industries are more adept at getting things digital and getting into the software platforms. And some industries just hold on to that paper pile and want to do things the way they did in 1982.
Very much so. I mean, the big difference between this, you could look at marketing agencies versus construction. Almost every marketing agency or really professional service organization we work with, heavily digital, and which makes it really, really convenient. Construction's been slow to transition over to that. The larger companies are moving more to digital, so you can gather that documentation, do OCR or AI type functions. But there still is a lot of stuff that's mailed, a lot of stuff that's manually written and things like that. And so those are definitely areas we want to look at to try to help you, or you to look at to try to be able to make sure that you're not having to do so much work just ticking and tying by yourself.
Yeah. So manual processes work. I mean, they're just slow, right? Like the paper piles come to Jason's desk and then he has to stamp things. And then he takes over to Sally and she has to approve things. And then it goes through 7 people. It eventually gets there, but then the entrepreneur feels like it takes a long time to close the books. It takes a long time to know what's going on. And it's really, really frustrating. So again, it's not that this is a bad way of doing things. It's just if you feel like things are slow or broken, it's because Jason lost a paper on the way to Sally's desk. And now we can't account for that money.
I'm going to disagree with you. Of course, it's a bad way of doing things.
Why did you say it was the best way of doing things?
No, it's terrible. And why I'm going to tell you it's terrible is the fact that when you go through a process like that and you create these manual processes, how many extra employees do you have because you've got manual processes? Are you paying out $40,000 of your profit every year just so you can have a manual process as opposed to something that's more automated? The answer is probably yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that. That's usually one of the conversations we start from the sales standpoint is because we use automation a lot and because we set up best practices, our goal is to save you time, which oftentimes can mean you're replacing at least one full-time person with a part-time person, or in some cases, we've seen organizations be able to reduce 2 or 3 people because we moved to an automated system. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have human intervention at some part of the process. There just are some processes that have to be that way. The person that gathers the mail, different things from that perspective. It might not make sense to go to a fully automated system just financially, but there are a lot that we hold tight to that we really don't need because automation can really make it a lot faster for us.
Okay, so that's number 2. Manual processes. So look at your business, and if you've got a bunch of people moving paperwork around, probably not the best thing. And it's one of the reasons why you feel like your finances are a mess. The third one here is lack of integration. So the idea that you might have really good systems in place. You might have a really good CRM that's tracking your sales data, but then you've got a financial platform that is tracking or duplicating that data, and it's not speaking, right? This happens in our business, right? So I want to point this out that we are absolutely not perfect, and we're a growing business as well, and we're always trying to find better platforms. And it's a great example because we use HubSpot for our CRM, and then we use QuickBooks for our finances and stuff, and we're always trying to figure out a way to get those to talk, and it's a pain.
Yeah, and when you're always trying to get the right type of data out of it, right?
Yep.
Because that becomes one of the issues that we run into too is oftentimes the people who use the platform have context into what's being done, but from a leadership standpoint, you can't make good decisions because not everybody has the core information visible. And it really is not effective also too to have your entire team be experts in every single platform that you use, because that's just massively time consuming, going back to kind of Ryan's comment initially on the manual processes. And so the integration aspect really is where there's opportunity to cut down time. If you can get your lead information from HubSpot to move over to QuickBooks, well, now you're cutting down that time of actually creating that information and putting that profile, address updates, phone numbers, all those kind of things. If you're using an invoicing platform that's creating your invoices and pushing that into your general ledger system, you want that to be done automatically. And if payments are being applied in that system, that's automatic. Because again, if not, it's a huge manual process that just is extremely time consuming. And you're really just wasting your ability to do other things with what actually matters for your company.
Yeah, so this is Zapier,
Yeah, Zapier.
Zapier, whatever you want to call it. I don't know.
You're happier with Zapier. That's their catch line.
That's their phrase.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you just came.
Yeah, no.
You should move to marketing. That was really good. Yeah, so stuff like Zapier, right, is going to.
Yeah. Middleware is a great opportunity for it, and the nice thing about it is middleware is becoming a whole lot easier to use. Zapier is a great example of that, where it gives you plug and play, or they've got automations that have already been built that you can just go through a list and pick those.
Well, it's even better now. I was looking at it a couple of days ago. So when you get on Zapier's webpage, there's an AI bot there, and it just says, "What are you trying to do?" And you just say, "Well, I've got HubSpot, and I get my data here, and it's driving me nuts because it's in this form, and then I need to get it into my financial platform over here," and it'll go, "Great." It'll analyze it, and then the AI will tell you what zaps you need.
Yeah.
So you used to have to build that, and you had a degree in middleware, but now you don't have to really do much.
100%.
So it's pretty cool. All right, so that's the third one. Is just lack of integration. You might be really good at having software in your platform, in your system. You might have eradicated all of your manual processes, but now these systems aren't talking, and that's a problem. Now you're duplicating information, and so you feel like your finances are a mess. Okay. Well, the next one is for Mr. Ryan Steck, poor financial oversight. So this is another reason why you feel like the books are broken. There's not an intelligent human being asking intelligent, critical questions.
Yeah, and this is where, I'm the broken record when I say this. As a business owner, an entrepreneur, or the head of the accounting department, or whatever you are, you have to understand what the financial statements are telling you. You have to know the story. And you hear me say this time and time again, is when I look at a set of financial statements, when I look at my balance sheet or the profit and loss or anything else, it's supposed to tell you a story. And if you look at it and it tells you the right story, you can make good decisions. But if you don't know what story you're looking for, how to interpret what the story is, you just look at it as a bunch of numbers to get your tax returns done. And that's a problem.
Yeah. Dan?
No, I completely agree with that. I think that's all three of those first ones you talked about really lead up to this. If you're not able to have a good efficient systems, you're not able to have good process or conversation, your data is going to be bad and you can't make good decisions from it. But to Ryan's point, and I think this is the part that's critical, is you also have to have the right person helping you to make good business decisions. And what I mean by that is if you don't have an understanding as an entrepreneur or as one of these roles to be able to translate it, find someone who can help you translate the story so that it makes sense. But make sure that it makes sense in your thought process and terminology as well. If not, you're just hiring someone super expensive to explain things and make things more complicated for you.
I actually like the idea of financial oversight and how people respond to it when they finally get good financial oversight. So most of the time people feel like, oh, I've got Janie, she's reconciling my bank accounts, and she goes in and ticks and ties stuff and then closes the books. I have financial oversight, right? And that is not financial oversight. Having somebody reconcile your bank accounts is not financial oversight. That's basic bookkeeping 101. That's step one of a really robust financial system. But when you get somebody in there who is, I like how you also said the right person, somebody who's got some experience, but is good at taking numbers and not dumbing them down, but turning them into a story, like Ryan said. That's really, really important, because I get frustrated when an accountant just grabs a big pile of reports, sets them on the desk and says, there you go, I closed the month, have at it, right? And the entrepreneur is expected to know how to read the financials, but the entrepreneur didn't go to business school or get an accounting degree usually. And so it can be a little hard, right? It's like me putting German on your desk. Here, have fun with that.
Well, I had a great conversation with a client earlier this week that we're looking at restructuring their chart of accounts. So this is how their financial story is being presented on their profit and loss and balance sheet. And the issue that they had is the leadership team that was in there before used this extremely difficult language, non-discretionary funds, and they're just like, we don't understand what any of this means. Like, this is not clear to us. Like, can we change this so that it makes sense to us when we read it, when we look at it? We know what wages are in cost of goods sold and what's associated to that just by the framing of it. And it was great because we were able to have a really honest conversation that said, yeah, no, we can change all this because we should. You should be able to look at your financials and say, I know what falls in that bucket because of the way that the story is being told within the way that the naming function is.
Yeah, good. All right, number 5 is inadequate training. So Do you guys want to beat this up?
This is a great topic. I'm going to let Ryan start off with this one.
I mean, talking about inadequate training when it comes to limitations in accounting, I mean, this is where do you start with inadequate training? Like, do you start and say, as the business owner, you're inadequately trained to actually understand your financials and to make decisions with them? Are you talking about your team who's inadequately trained to actually do more than just what we just talked about? Take a bunch of transactions and just dump them into a set of financial books and put them wherever they think they belong. I mean, this is where there's so many levels where you've got to be trained on what you do. If you're a bookkeeper, you've got to know how to enter transactions. If you're an accountant, you got to know how to read and interpret what the bookkeepers have done. If you're the business owner, you've got to be trained on how to actually read those financial statements. And if you're missing any of those steps, it kind of falls apart a little bit. And everyone down the line is going to be missing information that's really important to make decisions with.
Yeah. I think the problem too is that I hate to train people. I mean, do you guys like training people? I haven't met anybody that's like, I just want to spend my day training people. That's what I want to do. I haven't found that yet.
I like it, but I like it for a reason. I'm nerd, from that perspective. No, I think to your point, I mean, training is a really hard thing because it's also trying to determine what the rules of the game are going to be long term. And I think that's one of the most difficult parts about training is it's not just saying, well, this is how we do it, so go and do it. Because that's not really helping someone.
Small businesses often don't know how we do it, right? If you're
100%.
If you're a small business, you're 1 to 5 million, your processes are changing every other week. Completely. And so that's another reason why I don't like to train, because it's like, I don't want to write a process manual, spend hours getting that all down, and then have somebody go, let's do it a different way now. It's really frustrating. I feel like multi-billion-dollar corporations, they can train because they got the budget to do it, and they're slow and they're not changing.
I think also too, a lot of times we see employees that move different or organization or different business type to a different business type, and they try to carry the knowledge that they have from that other business into it. So looking at construction's different than medical practice. You can't treat the workflow the same for a medical practice as you do construction. You don't have work in process generally. Your inventory, your purchasing is often very, very different in how you analyze that. And so I think that's also where the training component comes into this as well, is sometimes we just trust people and say, well, you've been a bookkeeper, so go ahead and do this. Or you've been, an accountant, or you've been an office manager for this company. Now come in and make my stuff work. This is where you as the business owner have to also take some of that authority over this and say, does this person know how to do it, which is best for us? And finding that right way to be able to make sure they're trained and educated on it.
Yeah, and I think to that point, it always makes me laugh because I'm sure there are some that are good out there, but I can't tell you how many times I've talked to clients and people who had their office manager become their CFO. Yeah. I'm like, that's a pretty big jump there. Yeah. Like, how did we get from there to there? That's a big jump in a tall order to ask for that office manager to become a CFO and to be able to understand that and be trained.
Yeah, and the thing is that office manager knows all of the people's names and knows the vendors and the customers, and has probably been sitting at that front desk saying hi to everybody for 20 years. So you're sort of misjudging the fact that she knows a lot about your business with the fact that she's good at analyzing your business and leading your business. That's always a strange promotion to me. Yeah. All right. So we have some inadequate training. Number 6 on our list of 10 is scalability issues. So scalability just means that your business is able to grow at a rate where the costs don't keep pace with the revenue, right? You're able to add revenue quickly without a linear fashion of costs going up. So can you do that, and can you sort of exploit that difference? And that's hard to do when you start having issues in your business because you haven't taken time to think about how do I sort of exploit that difference. That causes problems in your finances. So do you guys have any thoughts about scalability? That was a really bad definition of that.
No, I don't think it was terrible. But no, I agree with what you're saying. I think I'm a simple terms person, or try to be, but scalability to me is where you have that limitation to be able to take that next leap without exponential cost, right? And so we see this very often tied to training. We see this very often tied to software platforms and different things like this. But also we see it very often when it comes to just internal policies on how your organization runs. We were having conversations a couple weeks ago about one of our clients who was having issues with someone made a mistake and it was going to cost them thousands of dollars because of it. Well, the reality of it is they didn't have a very clear outline of what was supposed to be done. And so because of that, they just keep impounding all these extra expenses that aren't necessary for their organization. They're not training their team correctly to be able to make sure that data moves correctly within their organization. And so they keep hiring people, and all of a sudden now they're bloated with way too many extra people, and they're spending money in so many different areas they don't need to where they're actually not growing their bottom line by adding more people and growing their business. They're actually hurting their business, which is the exact opposite of what they should be trying to do.
Yeah, from a scalability standpoint, I mean, this is probably the holy grail of all businesses. Like, this is what every business is trying to achieve to some level, which is to say, I'm growing, and as long as I keep growing my top line, my bottom line is going to get even bigger as well. And I'm going to figure out systems to make my life easier so that I can be on the beach half the week. I mean, that is what scalability is in a nutshell. And so if that's what you're shooting for, man, it's so hard. And you have to understand both your financials and your business as well. And that's where we're talking about the financial side today and the accounting side. That's half the equation with scalability. But you have to understand that so that you can try and streamline your business so that it can continue to grow. Because most businesses, unfortunately, do this from a net income standpoint.
Up and down.
Even as you're growing, your profits sometimes go down because you hire way more people. You have to get more machinery and equipment on the production line. You have to do certain things to support your growth. And so see it all the time. Businesses growing their top line. Oh, your net income just went down and tanked. Well, that's not a scalable business. And that's what you're trying to achieve. Your financials will help you understand that, but you have to understand your business model as well.
I think the challenge is just being honest with yourself as a business owner, because when you're not scaling, it's usually because you're being dishonest to yourself about something. Having your office manager become your CFO is a great example of becoming unscalable because you've just made that person a bottleneck. If all financial data has to flow through this one office manager, as you get bigger and bigger, that person's not going to be able to handle all of that, right? And I think it really comes down to we all have bottlenecks in our businesses. We all know that they're there. We probably know what they are as well, but we're lying to ourselves saying it's not a big problem. We'll figure it out. I'm going to keep that person employed because I like that person. I'm going to use this software because, it just makes me feel good about myself. I don't know, whatever it is.
We've used it forever, right?
We've always used it, so we're going to keep doing it, and we'll break through. That's another reason why you feel like you're just not making enough money, right? You're not winning at the game of finance because you've got all these bottlenecks everywhere. So that's number 6 is scalability issues. Number 7 is everybody's favorite. So if you ever feel like your books are broken or you are just not getting there financially, it's because you're having some compliance issues, compliance risks of some kind. Maybe you got a letter in the email in the email.
Yeah. A letter in the email. I love the letters in the email.
It was from the IRS. It did not come in the email. I know that.
But just something from the IRS that said, hey, you owe $50,000 in taxes or something, and you open that up, it ruins your morning. You come back, you yell at your accountant and say everything's broken.
Compliance is really hard because it's also all constantly changing. Right. Compliance doesn't just relate.
Sales tax.
Yeah. Compliance just doesn't relate to your point. It doesn't relate to just federal or state taxes. Sales tax is a big component and it's constantly evolving. We used to be able to say that if it was a tangible or a physical item, it was probably taxed in some way, shape, or form. Now services are becoming taxable and now there's different discounts you can get on certain things. And so that becomes something to where, again, you need to make sure you have the right suggestions and right people supporting you in it to be able to make sure you stay compliant. And you have to be careful also, too, to not put yourself in a position where you're over compliant. And what I mean by that is sometimes just because one thing comes up doesn't mean you have to register for 12,000 things. Just because you sold in one new state doesn't mean that you now have to do the 10,000 different registrations. You have to understand the law association with it so you don't run into an issue where now you have too much compliance that you're going through and actually halts your business from being able to move forward. You still need to stay compliant with state laws, but you also need to make sure that you're not. Yeah. You also need to make sure that you don't shoot yourself in the foot by now having so much regulation that it stumbles and makes it more difficult for your organization to grow.
Yeah. I think compliance is really expensive, like emotionally expensive, financially expensive, time-wise, it's incredibly expensive. And I think compliance is one of the main reasons why small businesses go out of business, because they're so busy trying to keep their taxes paid. And this is one of the reasons why I became an accountant. Like, I hate taxes because I just feel like they're just squeezing businesses, right? It's ridiculous how complicated, especially depending on what state you live in. If you live in California or New York, you're going to have an extra bunch of fun, Anyway, compliance. Any thoughts here, Ryan?
I mean, it's the necessary evil. And you either fall on one side of the fence or the other with compliance, which is you're either spending too much time on it and putting too much weight on it and saying, okay, I'm just doing all this accounting and this HR stuff so I can check boxes and be compliant, and I'm probably overpaying for it and I'm not getting any value out of it. You're either on that side of the fence or you're on the other, which is, I don't even care, and I'm just going to ignore it, and whatever happens, and away we go. And so there is a fine line where you have to put a priority on compliance to say, yes, I have to file taxes. Yes, I have to be respectful of laws and get things done. But ultimately, you just want to check that box as quickly as you can so that you can get value out of your accounting on top of that. But it is something you have to pay attention to, but don't be on either extreme.
Yeah. Yeah, I think more people knock on our door in the latter category than the former, which is, I have completely ignored it up to this point. What do I do? And when you're that $0 to $1 million business, it's probably not a big deal. But once you start making some real money, it's stressful. Compliance is not a nightmare. So, okay. Well, number 8 is limited access to financial insights. And what I mean by this is that your data is coming too slowly to you. It might be correct. All of your software systems might be integrated. You might have people doing all the things they should. There are no bottlenecks to your scaling, but it's just taking 3 months to close your books for whatever reason. And so you have really slow decision response time, right? And so let's talk about this.
Yeah, I got actually a message this morning from a client that I do CFO services for. They don't use us for their bookkeeping or their accounting work. I just do CFO services for them. And the question they asked this morning is I'm just getting my financial statements now. It's 4 weeks after the month is closed. That doesn't seem reasonable to me. What are your thoughts on that? And I mean, it's a great question, because if you're getting stuff too late and you're not getting timely financial statements, and it's a month later or 2 months or 3 months later, like you're talking about, how do you make decisions based on that? Because at that point, you've now swung back to the compliance that you're talking about. Well, my stuff's getting done, so I guess my taxes will get done at the end of the year. Can't make any good decisions because that happened 3 months ago. Yeah. Businesses change quickly.
Well, I was just on a sales call yesterday with a gentleman who's been in his business for 20 years. He started a long time ago. And he says, I've been doing this long enough that I know where my business is at in my gut. I just know how much cash I've got. I know the systems. But it takes them 3 months to close their books. And he's like, I would love to just verify what I know. I have no idea,
It's a lot of blind trust in that situation. I think this is one of those areas where accountants and entrepreneurs really start to rub each other wrong. Because to Brian's comment about the compliance aspect of it, accountants want to make sure everything's right. And the business owners trying to grow their business and make decisions to help their business stay open and move forward. And if you don't find that balance in that relationship between the two of them, you're actually hindering the ability to be able to grow. You're hindering the ability for the relationship to be successful. And so accountants have to do a better job being more proactive and providing insights to clients better and helping them to be able to, to grow. But also the entrepreneur needs to be understanding of, I need to give you information quickly so that you can get that information back to me. We talked a lot about that on the last episode, and I don't think we need to go into it deep, but I think there's a relationship component that really changes if everybody's on the same page.
Yeah. Okay. So that's number 8. Your books are taking too long to close. And so, of course, you feel like your books are broken because you have no idea what's happening, right? All right. Number 9 is the high cost of in-house staff, right? So you're paying a lot of money for your in-house bookkeeper, controller, accountant, CFO, whatever it is. And you feel like for what you're getting for these hundreds of thousands of dollars that you're shelling out every year, it's just not, something's broken, something's off, right? And any thoughts here?
I was going to say, we see this really commonly with startups as they get going. They've got 2 people who are either the co-founders or whatever their group of people is, and they decide they need to go hire a CFO so that they can look wonderful in front of everybody.
They want to raise money.
And they want to raise money or whatever it is. And in a lot of cases, that CFO comes in and they're hiring him as a full-time person instead of getting the right resources for their organization. And that person just sits there twiddling their thumbs half the time, making $400,000 a year. And they don't want to do bookkeeping. They don't want to do all those other things. They want to go do the fun things.
It's not that they don't want to, it's that they won't.
Yeah. But at the same point in time, too, it's also organizations where they hire 4 different bookkeepers to come do AP, AR, bank reconciliations, when in reality, it's just because they have bad system processes. So they're overspending instead of really analyzing what their business needs and what things potentially could create more efficiencies for them.
I think it comes down to a lack of understanding what you need as a business owner. And I've said this before many times, which is you didn't go into business so that you could hire an HR director. You didn't go into business so that you could hire an accounting team.
Wait, what are you talking about, man?
And that's not the purpose of your business. Well, and you've heard me say this, HR directors think you went into business to hire an HR director. Accountants think you went into business to hire them as accountants. They think that's why you went into business. Yeah. And
you've been waiting for me your whole life,
That's
buddy.
Right. That's why you did this. And I think if you understand the motivation of the people that you're working with and their understanding, it helps you make that decision to say, no, there's some things you need from HR. There's some things you need from an office manager. There's some things you need from accounting, your back office, if you will. And if you understand what you need and how to pay for that and how to get that and maximize that out of people, you'll make better hiring decisions, you'll make better financial decisions, and you'll get people who are actually giving you what you want.
Well, this actually goes the other way too. I was just thinking about this. It's not on our list, but this one's titled The High Cost of In-House Management. I'm going to say the extremely low cost of outsourced management, right? This is the other side of the coin where people will knock on our door and they say, you know, we're a $20 million company and our books are a mess. And I'll say, well, okay, well, who's doing the books? Well, I've got an outsourced company. I pay them $300 a month and they're just not keeping up. And I'm thinking, well, no kidding, Sherlock, right? You're a $20 million business paying $300 a month for your financial platform. This happens a lot. And I think people seem to think that because we're in the age of robots and software, and it's just numbers, like the computer can do it. So a couple $100 makes sense, right? But that is, I don't know, if you've ever gotten onto Chat GPT or any of the AI tools and played around for a while, you realize that there is a large gap between what you think it can do and what it can actually do, right? And sure, it's going to get more efficient, but there is an absolute need for somebody to be in your business who is worth what they're charging, who is actually taking care of it, right? So,
well, and businesses have different levels of complexity in them, right?
Yeah.
And in different areas. It's not just you buy from one person, you sell to one person, and that's just how your business functions. It's just a one for one. There's different sales channels you're maneuvering through. You're hiring people in different states. You're going through all these different things.
Manufacturing products. We got warehouse.
100%.
Shipping costs. We got
all of these things at some point in time have to be understood so that organizationally, you're not, again, going back to some of the other discussions, having too many people in a bunch of different areas that aren't needed. Yeah. And so you have to be really careful that you don't put yourself in a position where you've now spent way too much money or way too little money on getting the resources you need, because you're actually hindering your business growth.
Yeah, good. Okay, we've made it to the last one, which is just lack of expertise. We've talked about this a little bit, but I want to just expand on it a little more here. So lack of expertise, I think, is coming down to the way, first of all, business owners value their accounting. So when you walk into a grocery store and you need to buy some corn, right, and you're standing in the produce aisle and you're just looking at all of the different kinds of corn, it's really hard to sort of distinguish, oh, this corn's got more benefits for me because of X, Y, and Z. I'm going to spend the extra dollar on this corn. That's called a commodity, right? Where corn is just corn. So I'm going to buy the cheapest corn I can. Sometimes accountants or entrepreneurs feel that way about their platform, their accounting platform, where accountants are just accountants. I'm just going to get the cheapest one I can. And in doing so, you end up with some really low expertise, some experience. So you end up hiring people who say they know what they're doing. They don't, who charge, $90 a month or whatever it is to do whatever they're going to do. And then, of course, you're going to be frustrated with that. But there's also expertise on the business owner's part. I want to make an argument that it is on you as a business owner to read a couple finance books, right? I mean, money is flowing through your business. And if all you're going to do is sit at your desk and complain that there's, you're being robbed, but you haven't taken the time to learn anything about it, it starts with you.
Yeah, I like the context that you brought up about the corn example. I think the three of us are accountants, right, by trade. Like that's what we have at Core. We're all very different types of accountants. We all have very different specific trainings
you're better at it than me.
and things like that. No, but Eddy's background, your basis is in sales, but you're also come from an auditing background, which is all in checks and balances, making sure that things look right. Ryan comes from a tax and CFO standpoint, which is high insights after the fact, reviewing, helping you to be able to move your business forward. Mine's very operational and very transactional in my my piece. And so all of them are very valuable in different situations for a business owner. But yet at the same time, when we sell our services, we don't sell just one of us. We sell a bit of each of us in some capacity to our clients because they need that to be able to functionally work in their business. They don't need one of us full time to try to do everything because we're not the best at each of those areas. But they do need parts of us in certain capacities to be able to really make their business grow. And I think that's the same for you as you start looking at the training or whatever it is that you need for your team and making sure that you have the right people in the right seats. You have to make sure you understand exactly what it is that you need.
So what you're saying is that if you need a podiatrist, you shouldn't get a gynecologist.
Correct.
Well, and even a step further, I look at it and I say, look, I am really good at CFO and advisory and telling a business strategically how they're going to get where they're going to be. I'm very good at taxes if I need to jump in and give some consultative work.
But you're a miserable bookkeeper.
I'm the world's worst bookkeeper. That's my title. I am the world's worst bookkeeper.
I knew where we were going with this.
Yeah. And I look at it and say, look, I mean, I offer certain things and you have to know what I offer and what I can give you because I can't give you A to Z in the accounting world.
Nobody can.
Right.
Nobody can. But the problem is that people sell themselves as though they can, right? The service is like, no, I'm all the bells and whistles for $99 a month. And I don't know. People need to eat. They need to feed their kids. So they'll say whatever they have to get the client. But it's a scary thing. It really is.
My favorite is that when I tell people I'm an accountant, they ask me how tax season's going.
Yeah.
I'm not a tax accountant. No, I don't understand. I've never filed my own tax return. Like I'm going to say that right now. But there's not a reason for me to understand that because I do well in other areas. I have expertise in other spaces that help me to be able to do things that help me and help my business and the client's work. And I think that's a part that goes along with it too, is also when you evaluate your team and understanding, it's saying, to your point, what do I need? But also, does this person have skill set that actually is going to help me to grow my business?
Yeah. I mean, you've got, of course, bookkeepers, accountants, controllers, and CFOs, but you've also got cost accountants. You've got people that specialize in compliance. You've got people that specialize in manufacturing. You've got operationally focused accountants. You've got technology focused accountants. I mean, we all have our skill sets. And so you really need to know who you're working with here.
100%.
You do. So good. All right. So that is our list of the 10 most common reasons why we see people coming into or knocking on our door with broken books and why they're frustrated. And so if you are a business owner and you're watching this thinking something is wrong with my business, I can't get my thumb on it, it could be one of these. Either your software is outdated, you've got manual processes, there's a lack of integration in those processes, poor financial oversight is a problem. You might have some inadequate training somewhere in your chain. Scalability issues is always something we all struggle with. Compliance risks, limited access to financial insight, the high cost or the exceptionally low cost of the solution you've picked, and then also just a general lack of expertise. So Take a look at your business and find one of those that feels like that is the biggest sort of sliver in your skin, and find a way to dig it out. You can do this on your own with a little bit of forethought and critical thinking. If you do want some additional help, of course, we are available. You can go to ignitespot.com, and up in the top of our website there is a banner that says something to the effect of click here for a free QuickBooks file review. We do like to do some work for you for free in the beginning just to show you what we're capable of. If it's a good fit, then we can move forward together. So with that, do you have anything else you guys want to say before we wrap up? Doing good? All right, excellent. Thanks for watching the show. And until next week, stay profitable.